Welcome, welcome. Baruch atah Adonai
Adonai
Eloheinu melech
Eloheinu
haolam
Olam,
asher kitshanu
Shikachanu
b'mitzvotav
Mitzvotav, Mitzivanu
v'tzivanu
Asok
la'asok
B'divrei Torah.
b'divrei Torah.
All right.
And we are doing this little part here with the last part of Lech Lecha, and we talked about the Brit Milah, and we talked about Abraham's change of name, etc., the significance of that, and Sarah is not going to be left out. Vayomer Elohim el Avraham. So God said to Abraham, Sarai ishtecha, Sarai your wife, lo tikra, drum roll, etshma Sarai. Her name will no longer be called Sarai, ki Sarashma, but rather Sarah. So this is where she becomes Sarah. Rashi's going to explain to us the significance of this. So let's take a look and see where Rashi starts here. Okay. Lo tikra itshma Sarai. You shall not call her name Sarai. Sarai demashma, which implies Sarai li, meaning my princess. The I is actually a plural possessive of on first person possessive. So it actually means our princess. But when you're talking about Elohim, notice that even the im ending is a plural ending. It's a way of indicating royalty. I love to tell you, if you told a joke to Queen Victoria, which she didn't think was funny, Queen Victoria would say, please tell me, what would she say? We are not amused, right? She's famous for that particular line. We are not
Right.
amused.
I've heard it. Yes.
Yes, we are not amused. It is clearly a universal understanding of showing that royalty is sui generis. It's one of a kind. So with God, of course, ultimate sui generis, and so doesn't mean my princess, velo la'acharim, but not for others. Ki Sarah stam, however, when it's Sarah, Shma, when you consider her just as Sarah, a princess, right? Shetehe Sarah, that she shall be a princess, call of everyone. So a universal, she becomes from simply God's princess to a universal princess. And I don't know that until I spent my time with all of you meditating on these words, the recognition of a universalistic theme creeping into the text here. That while we understand that this covenant that God has with Abraham and his descendants, but if you think carefully about all of Abraham's descendants, you pretty much, I think there's sort of this implication ultimately of a divine connection uh, across the globe, across with humanity. And I think it's here. And of course, these names, right? Avraham is the father of many nations, of Hamon Goyim. And the idea of what are the implications of such a theme, I believe, is to say that humanity here, the suggestion that humanity can have this wonderful, wonderful, amazing connection to the divine. Not only Abraham's direct descendants, although as members of the Jewish people, we have a unique connection with unique responsibilities. Along with privilege goes responsibility. It has to go hand in hand. So we are privileged, but at the same time, there is this potential of all humanity having this close connection to the divine. And that, I think, is marvelous. I love it. Onwards. Remember, still has no children, no children. Uveirachti ota, and I will bless her. And remember, the word bracha essentially connotes plenitude. Plenitude, right? V'gam natati mimena lecha ben, and I am also going to give from her to you a son. This is the one thing that Abraham wanted more than anything else, was to be able to sire a son through Sarah and have a son. The interesting thing is that the reason why Abraham wanted to have a son was so that he could share with that son what he had learned and discovered himself about this relationship with God, and to make sure that it didn't end with him, but that his child and subsequent generations would all learn this amazing discovery that he had discovered himself. Uverachtiha, I shall bless her, v'haita legoyim, and she shall become nations. And again, this universalistic idea, theme coming in. Malchei amim mimena yiyu, kings of nations from her will be. There will be from her kings of nations. Uverachti ota. So you notice, you see, the moment it talked about Barach, what followed was her having a child. I shall bless her. Umahi habracha, right? Right? And what was her blessing? How was she blessed? Shechazra linurota, that she returned to her maidenhood. She became a maiden once again here at the age of 90. Shine'emar, as it says later on in the next chapter, in chapter 18, where she overhears the three angels telling Abraham that she is going to have a child, and she says, Haita li edna, will I in fact have Edna, the word Eden, right? Gan Eden. So the loving and beauty and youth of being able to have a child. So that's the idea. Edna sometimes is translated as periods, right? I will have that opportunity. And as painful and as miserable as periods are, nevertheless, they indicate the ability to have a child. So, uverachtiha, and I shall bless her. This is really charming how the tradition understands these words and how they, they deconstruct these words. How's she going to be blessed by God? Bahanakat shadayim, in her ability to suck, to give suck through her breasts, that her breasts will be able to give, to be able to suckle a child. And what do we mean, I shall bless her? Remember, the beracha involves plenitude. Just remember that in the back of your mind, right? Keshenitzrecha lechach, when she requires it, when she needs to be able to suckle, she's going to be able to do that. But remember, it's a bracha. And bayom mishteh, on the day of the feast, shel Yitzchak, of Isaac. On the day of Isaac's feast, Shehayu Merananim, this is again charming, because people were sipping. They were kind of complaining. Complaining's the wrong word, but they were saying miserable things, Alehem. They were sort of gossiping about Abraham and Sarah. Sheheviu asufi min hashuk. That, here's Sarah, 90 years old. They have a baby. Where do you think this baby comes from? You think Sarah gave birth to this baby? No, they found a foundling and they're claiming it's theirs. That is the gossip that they were having, right? That they had found a foundling in the marketplace. V'omrim b'nei nuhu, and they were saying, "This is our son." V'hevia kol achat b'na ima, and all the women there had brought their baby son or their baby child with them. Umenikta, okay, and Sarah suckled all these children, all these babies. Lo hevia, right? And if they, sorry, no. Sorry, retranslate this, right? They brought their child with them, umenikta lo hevia, but the women had not brought their wet nurses. That's what they mean here, right? They didn't bring the wet nurses with them when they came with their babies. Vehi hinika et kulam, and she acted as wet nurse for all of them. Well, I mean, if she hadn't actually given birth herself, how's she capable of suckling children, right? So that's what it means. Sorry, when I prepared this, I translated it the way I did before I corrected myself in looking it over a second time. But that is absolutely what it means. They didn't bring the wet nurses. Right? But the point is that she gave suck to all of them. Hu shenemar. Where do we find this? Hinika banim Sarah. It says, who would have thought that Sarah was capable of giving suck to children, to babies? And banim is plural, right? So it wasn't just that she was giving suck to Isaac, but giving suck to children. And again, he gives you we have the reference Bereshit Rabbah. This is in this wonderful Midrash Rabbah on Genesis. Ramoz b'miktzat. It is hinted a little bit, he says. So, going on. I love this material. Let's see. Here we go. Vayipol Avraham apanav vayitzchak. And when Abraham heard these words from God, he fell on his face and he laughed. It's interesting, right? We've got Abraham laughing. We all know about the Sarah laughing, but Abraham's laugh is different. Abraham's laughing out of joy and his disbelief is giving him, it isn't so much disbelief as joy and amazement, right? He's amazed. Vayomer belibo, and he said to himself, Halavin me'ashana yivalev, can a child be born to someone of 100 years old? Ve'im Sarah, and if Sarah habat tish'im shana teled, is it possible that Sarah, who's 90 years old, will give birth? But his laughter was not a denial, it was an amazement. That's his laughter. By the way, I have to tell you that to this day, when I mention to congregations that Sarah was 90 years old and Abraham was 100, people laugh. People laugh. It's so interesting, right? Yitzchak. But we know laughter, it comes from many places, right? So anyway, Vayomer Avraham ela Elohim, and Abraham said to God, Lu Yishmael yichle lefnecha, were only Yishmael to live before you. So it's interesting, his reaction, right? What he thinks in his heart, and he's worried now about the possibility that Ishmael, well, when it says live before you, does that mean that initially it sounds like, does it mean Ishmael's going to die? And as I'm doing this with you and having to think through it in your presence, I'm thinking when he says Yichyeh lefanecha, he's talking about that Ishmael should again live a godly way of life, that living before you has to do with not, he knows that Ishmael is not going to have this sort of close connection to God that Isaac's going to have. But nevertheless, he wants Ishmael to still have a close connection to God. And of course, if we wanted to go the full length and say, well, Muslims consider themselves to be descendants of Ishmael, they absolutely have a connection to God. So let's see if Rashi has anything to say here. Here we go. Vayipol Avraham apanav, Abraham fell on his face, Vayitzchak, and he laughed. Ze, right? I believe Tirgem Onkelos Lashon Simcha, right? He says that Onkelos translates this laughter as joy. He's so happy to hear this, right? His one hope is coming true. V'chadi, that's the Aramaic word, and it means he was joyful. He was happy. V'shel Sarah, but on the other hand, when you're translating with that she laughed, Lashon, it looks like michuch, right? So I think here he means, I'm gonna guess that michuch here means disbelief, something like that, right? Lamadata. So you can infer from this, she'Avraham he'emin, right? V'samach, that Abraham believed God and he was joyful, he was happy. V'Sarah lo he'emina, but Sarah didn't really believe, he couldn't believe it. Oops. And I just lost my screen share. And I don't know why. Oh, there we go. I don't know if you can see all of this, but it's amazing that it does that. Okay. I'm going to do the screen share again. I'm going to try, see if I can find it. Here we are. Just get it back. And hopefully you'll see it in a moment. Good.
It's back.
Okay. Okay, great. I'm glad I was able to get that done quickly. Let's see. 1 second. There we go. Right. Okay. Lo Emina, she did not believe. The liglaga, right? She was a little bit, I guess ligleg is sort of to mock in some ways, when you react out of disbelief and you kind of say, come on, right? That's what you're saying, kind of that. V'zehu shikpid, and that's the reason that the Holy One, blessed be He, hikpid al Sarah. He was, in a way, annoyed, right, with Sarah. He corrected her. V'lo hikpid al Abraham, but he doesn't correct Abraham. So we have to understand, because they each of them, at their own moments, right, of this announcement, had a different reaction, even though they both laughed. One laughed out of joy, and one laughed out of disbelief. Okay, halaben, right? To one who is. This is how one says of age, right? Yesh temihut shehen kayamot, right? So I think what he's saying is there is a amazement, right? That remains. Kayamot means to sort of stand. Kamot, for example, and this is in the first book of Samuel, chapter 2. Hanigla nigleti. Did I, in fact, reveal myself? Did I not reveal myself? Haro'eh, I'm sorry, I want to make sure. Haro'eh ata. Okay, so, I'm going to have to look at this particular thing, okay? Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. At this particular point, I am stumped. I am going to have to go back and look at this. So I am going to, let me keep going if I can. Okay. Um, hmm, hmm. Do you not see? Do you not see? So that has to be what this means, right? Although this is the second book of Samuel, so we're dealing with King Solomon and what followed.
So,
Yeah. Well, this isn't Saul because this is the second book of
Second Samuel. All
yeah,
right.
Second Samuel. First book of Samuel deals with Saul
All
and
right.
David. Um, wait. Sorry. Second book of Samuel deals with King David, and
Okay.
first book of Kings deals with yeah, yeah, deals with Solomon, etc. So I do not recollect this particular context. Afzo he kayemet. And in this one too, it remains, it exists. V'chach amar belibo, and so he said in his heart, Hani isa chesed ze la'achar la'achar ma shehakadosh baruch hu oseh li. So I'm absolutely going to have to go back and go over this and clarify what we're doing here. But I'm just trying to translate as best as I can, right? He said in his heart, can this kindness be done to me? Something like that, right? Can it be done? La'achar ma shakadosh baruch hu oseh li, after what the Holy One, blessed be He, is doing for me. And I'm going to stop here, but I think what I'm going to do is next time we meet, I'm going to bleed nader. I'm going to try and take care of this and make sure I clarify this because I don't want to wait until next year to do that. So I'm going to do this around here, and I'm going to, let's see here, sorry, just find the place. All right. Okay. And I'm going to mark it and quit it, stop the share. And there we are. All right. again, this is in 1 week I've managed to, you know, not be able to fully explain what we're doing because I ran out of time and wasn't, I have excuses for why I wasn't fully prepared there. Oh well, so be it. Any comments, well, for the record before I stop the recording?
No, I think that this is very heavy duty midrash. It really is.
When you say
And
heavy duty, what do you mean by that?
well, the interpretation is really, uh, I wouldn't say out of left field, but it's interesting that it provides sort of a psychological insight into the reactions of Abraham and Sarah being separate. And I can't help but think, as you were going through it initially, that Sarah's reaction to knowing that she was going to have a child and that uh, Ishmael comes up in here very quickly, it's sort of like this is Sarah's revenge. And Sarah must have harbored within her a sense of antipathy towards Hagar and Ishmael. And here she gets this news, and it's sort of like, okay, I'm it's my comeback against her and him.
Interesting. Yeah, no, this is very,
It's a human emotion.
right. Mead, I think you're on the mark. I really do. I appreciate your sharing that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, Abraham is the one who doesn't want to lose Ishmael. Sarah doesn't mention him at all. And then, of course, in the next chapter, we'll read how, she's already gotten rid of Hagar one time when she got pregnant, okay? And
Mhm.
of course, she's going to permanently get rid of Hagar and Ishmael a little later on, okay? So 13, when it's basically when Ishmael turns 13, okay? But again, yes, I think there was that. I also think that a woman, I think the Torah is being actually quite beautiful here in saying, from a man's point of view, it's not as hard to believe that this might happen. From a woman's point of view, when she hasn't had periods for years and years and years, decades, right? It's a little harder for her to believe it.
Well, she's done and she's reconciled. This is the way it's
Yeah.
going to be.
Right. Well, she had to. I mean, I don't know how
Yes, it's
reconciled she was,
reality.
but
Yeah.
it's a much stronger reality for a woman than it is
Hmm.
for a man.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. Kathy, were you going to say something?
No.
Not really.
Okay. All right.
No, I think you may be right about the woman, but I've never been in that situation. I mean, I've been pregnant when I
Yeah.
was 30, so
Right. Right.
I,
Yes. It's a
Yeah.
long time ago.
no, that was a long time ago.
As long as you're not accusing me of man speak.
No, no.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but of course, there's tremendous significance, right, from a literary point of view, in the fact that Abraham and Sarah are so aged. I mean, it's part of saying that there's something by the nature of miraculous. Miraculous meaning that there's a divine hand in what's going on here, in the fact that the Jewish people survived it all. That it didn't stop with Abraham and Sarah, and that was the end of it, right? But rather that it continues.
I know that if I was told by God that I would be pregnant now, I would be okay with it. But if I just became pregnant now, I'd be upset. 76, come on.
Well, listen, Sarah did last, I think, was she 125 years old or something when she passed? You know,
Something
I
like
think that's how old she was. Abraham was 175. So he got to see he must have, oh, it's quite possible he was around. He was around, in fact, with when Jacob was born, when Jacob and Esau were born.
that.
And in fact, the story about Jacob making the lentil stew has to do with the idea that he was making it for Abraham's Shiva. That Abraham had died, and so he was making lentils are a mourner's food. So that's the significance of the lentil stew back then. And there's also, I mean, there's just so many amazing, beautiful literary connections that I feel the Midrash pulls out, is able to extract, that there's such sensitivity on the part of the Midrash and the rabbis of the Midrash to the literary value of the Torah. So, okay, we'll stop here.
Okay.